Pictures appearing to show Andrew Mountbatten Windsor crouched over an unidentified woman are featured in the latest disclosure of files linked to the late American sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Last night, the most recent set of Epstein files was released. Additionally, buried in just weeks after Jeffrey Epstein's house arrest for soliciting a minor's sex, he personally set up a meeting between Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and a 26-year-old Russian lady, according to a set of emails in those records. Not weeks after, not years after, and not prior to his conviction. According to the emails, Epstein informed Andrew that the lady already had his email address and portrayed her as 26 years old, Russian, intelligent, attractive, and trustworthy. In response, Andrew said he would be thrilled to meet her and even asked Epstein in a startling way if she would be carrying a message from him. Epstein had barely regained his freedom when this discussion took place in August 2010.
Discuss for a moment the avalanche of information emanating from the Jeffrey Epstein files and, the further revelations about the former Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And let's discuss.
Mary starts a message by asking him how he is doing now that he is free. He replies, "Great to be free of many things," which alone reveals a lot about the tone of their discussions at the time in his early 50s. Andrew continued to sign off as a Knight of the Garter and use his HR style and communications. Additionally, he was actively arranging to meet Epstein again in New York, lamenting in one letter the many possibilities he was passing up and pledging to see him shortly. That's precisely what he did 2 months later in December 2010. Andrew spent time at Epstein's mansion in Manhattan. To this point, the now famous picture of the two of them strolling through Central Park was captured. Even though it took place long after Epstein's conviction, that picture has come to symbolize Andrew's relationship with him. Since Andrew subsequently said repeatedly that he had severed ties with Epstein in 2010, this is a crucial point in the chronology. In his 2019 interview with Newsite, Andrew emphasized that he was visiting New York for a single reason. He said that he went to visit Epstein in person because he believed that breaking up with him over the phone would have been the chicken's way. He said that telling him their partnership was ended while looking him in the eye was more dignified.
There's photographs of him massaging a person whose face is redacted, blocked away. We've got more emails. There's emails involving...
The emails don't support that narrative, which is the issue. According to the recently made public records, Andrew and Epstein kept in touch after that visit. In addition, they depict him interacting with people, going to exclusive gatherings, and being welcomed into Epstein's world instead of severing connections. Epstein set up a very intimate screening of the King's address for Andrew on that December trip. A limited guest list, no press. Harvey Weinstein, an executive producer, even offered Andrew a print of the movie, according to emails from Peggy Siegel, Epstein's publicist. Photographs of Weinstein, Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell were taken during Princess Beatrix's 18th birthday celebration at Windsor Castle years before. Since it demonstrates how linked these circles were even before anybody claimed to have fully comprehended the scope of Epstein's misdeeds, the picture has been coming up whenever these papers are made public. Additionally, the emails disclose a dinner that Epstein threw when Andrew was in New York. Along with well-known media personalities, Woody Allen and his wife Sununi were on the guest list.
Fergie as well. And it just paints a terrible picture of a relationship between Andrew and Fergie that had with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted paedophile.
Peggy Siegel emphasized that Epstein's house was unofficial and very private, calling it one of the biggest private mansions in Manhattan. She invited visitors to join her for what she termed a quick and enjoyable supper. She alluded to the prospect of spending private time with Andrew in a different letter. It becomes more difficult to dismiss the narrative as a coincidence or an example of poor decision-making at this point. According to one email, Andrew promised Epstein a lot of secrecy when he offered him supper at Buckingham Palace in 2010. Epstein responded by stating that he wanted private time with Andrew and asking if he should bring many ladies with him to give some liveliness. The message was sent from an account named The Duke and was simply signed with an A. This was no guy severing relations. A lengthy email correspondence between Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell is also included in the docs. In and
amongst the more than 180,000 images released are these pictures showing the then Prince Andrew kneeling over and touching a female whose identity has been hidden. There's no context, location or date provided.
In a letter to him the day following the Queen Mother's passing, Maxwell refers to him as Sweet Pea and expresses how much they had missed one another. In response, Andrew gives kisses. Another communication, which is signed by the unseen guy who is thought to be Andrew, asks whether the recipient is having more offspring and humorously calls them super sperm. Additionally, Maxwell sent an email after Andrew turned down a vacation to Epstein's Island. She says that she will just have to play with herself and 5 other gorgeous redheads. I'll end by saying, I love you lots. Once again, they aren't communications from someone trying to distance themselves. An email from Andrew's ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, which is also included in the most recent release, describes Epstein as a legend and the brother she had always desired. Outrage has been sparked by that letter alone, especially in light of Epstein's actions as they have come to light. The US Department of Justice made millions of papers available as part of the Epstein files, which are the source of all of this information. According to the agency, the requirement to redact material that may identify victims was the reason for the delays. There are hundreds of thousands of photos and thousands of videos in the release. The 65-year-old Andrew no longer has any royal titles or military ties, as is well known. In the next weeks, he is anticipated to vacate Royal Lodge and relocate to a smaller home on the Sandringham estate. He is anticipated to move into this new home, and it was recently claimed that he threw a fit after seeing it. In 2019, while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, his pal Epstein passed away in a New York prison.
Andrew has always denied any criminal wrongdoing, but this latest batch of files once again contains items raising serious questions of judgment, not least an email exchange from 2010, long after his close friend Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted of sexual offences involving children.
Maxwell is now incarcerated for 20 years for sex trafficking and other charges. Virginia Du Fry claimed that she was trafficked to Andrew, although Andrew still disputes this. He has always insisted on his innocence. However, it is increasingly difficult to overlook the discrepancy between Andrew's private and public actions as more emails surface. We may never completely understand every interaction specifics. However, it is very evident from these emails that communication persisted. Socializing continued, invitations were sent, and the paper trail just does not support the notion that there was a clean separation. This heightened scrutiny coincides with the recent resurgence of photos associated with the Epstein files, which show Andrew inside the townhouse in Manhattan, on his hands and knees over a lady who seems to be laying on the floor below him. The lady is dressed completely. Her name has never been made public, and the circumstances surrounding the photo shoot have never been explained in detail. Although the photos themselves don't suggest any illegal behavior, their resurfacing has increased public anxiety, especially when seen in conjunction with emails attesting to Andrew's continuous presence in Epstein's house and social circle even after Epstein's imprisonment. The pictures make many onlookers wonder more about the character of Andrew's trips and if they support his insistence that he was trying to put himself in a different place. So, I'm curious about your thoughts. Do these emails and pictures alter your perspective, Andrew, or do you believe that his association has unjustly assessed him? Please share your opinions in the comments section.